Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. It is time for another edition of the RTI Lowdown. I'm Bob Baskerville, joined as always by my good friend and guy knows a little bit about journalism and sports, and we're lucky to always be able to hang with him on this show. It's Chris Lowe with On3 Sports. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm great, Bob. It's good to be with you. I'm used to this part of November, getting the big coat out, man, but it was nice. I got off the plane. I'd been in Pittsburgh and felt I was walking back into like a September day in East Tennessee. But also heating up on the coaching front, and going to be a pretty crazy end of the SEC season as we try to figure out which teams are going to get in the playoff.
Yeah, most definitely. It was a wild weekend in college football. We're definitely going to talk about that. It's a great time of year because college basketball's really kicking off too. Last time we did an episode, we were just entering the beginning of the regular season. We took a little break from the show last week due to the bye week, but we're back at it today. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at the Tate Insurance Group. Talk about them a little bit later in the show, but if you're ever looking for real pros to help you with your medical, your auto, your car, life insurance, all those things, this is one-stop shop. These guys do it all. And we're really proud to have them as partners with us on this show today. You can also, if you're checking us out visually, that means you're watching us on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe if that's the case. If you're more of a audio-only podcast person, those paths are available as well. Pretty much anywhere you listen to your podcasts, you can find our podcast. So we sure do appreciate you spending time with us. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking in just a few minutes with VFL and a guy now that's got a new chapter doing some broadcast work with the Vols. Certainly a favorite of mine. Chris Lofton is going to be joining the show, talk a little Vol basketball here momentarily. But like I said, we're certainly going to talk about football as well as we tee things up. The Vols had a pretty kind of an easy one on Saturday afternoon against New Mexico State. It was the first time they had played since that really disappointing loss a couple weeks back to Oklahoma. Chris, we're not going to dig too deep into this one. This one was, you and I have talked about it. You kind of called it kind of a scrimmage type of game because that's really what it was. But Tennessee wins it 42-9. Kind of a tough one to watch, particularly when you know that the end of the road might be coming without any college football playoffs. But Vols still have some things to play for.
I tell you, fans better get used to it not being quite like this going forward, Bob, because when we go to 9 games next year in the league, I don't know how many scrimmages teams are going to be playing in November. And it's not just Tennessee, the SEC as a whole. You think about I think Kentucky played Tennessee Tech. Bama's got Eastern Illinois, I think. So it's so anticlimactic to get into November for me anyway, as a football junkie in me, and have these glorified scrimmages when there's so much at stake for everybody, Tennessee included. Yeah, Tennessee's not, unless some crazy set of circumstances happen, which I don't see being the case, they're not going to be in a playoff. But don't be mistaken, there's a lot riding on these next 2 games for this program, for Josh Heupel. I think the overall direction, Bob, of the program, and certainly we're going to get into more of this later on, but in year 5 with 2 teams coming up that I think if you lined up every Tennessee fan and said who are the 3 or 4 teams you want to beat the most, then Florida's going to be in that group, and certainly Tennessee, having dominated the series the way they have with Vanderbilt, Tennessee fans don't want to lose to Vanderbilt, which this probably will be the best Vanderbilt team that Tennessee's ever faced. And I think these 2 games, one on the road, one at home, in a lot of ways dictate or certainly shape the way the fan base looks at this program going forward as Josh goes into year 6.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's really interesting is while we're not playing for a playoff spot, I do think that these two upcoming games that are left on the schedule highly consequential to this program in terms of just its standing in general, what it means to incoming players, all the other things, and certainly the fan base. Because I will say this, and then we'll get back to it a little later in the show. This was the first weekend where I felt like I watched the game, but there was, even for me as a fan, and I sure hope it's not happening with the players, but sometimes, that the worst part of this is you can be angry about a team or you can be happy about a team. The worst part is if you're apathetic and you don't care about the team. And there was a little bit of that for me as a fan this weekend. And that's not a great feeling. And to your point, that's, the road's only going to get tougher moving forward. So these next few games, these boys still have a lot to play for. So
I'll tell you what's not apathetic. It was watching number 5 shoot the basketball, and we'll use that as our segue to bring in our guest, Chris Lofton. Chris, the pride of Mason County, joining us tonight on the RTI Lowdown. Chris, you're a Renaissance man. Now you're a hoopster. You're on the radio. You're doing a little commentary with the Vol Network. What's that like, my friend?
Man, first of all, thanks for having me. I know you're big time. I thought you forgot about me.
Never you, Chris. Never you, brother.
I know how those big time people get, man. They forget about the small people. So it's good to know you still remember me, Chris. Appreciate you. But it's been fun just, doing this commentary thing. Mike, Keith, and John Wilkerson have been great, teaching me, and I've been learning so much from them. And, man, it's just a new thing for me. And, I look at it as if I get a front row seat to Tennessee basketball games now. So, I bleed orange, so it doesn't get any better for me right now.
Well, and some news surrounding you here recently, and certainly going back as long as I do with you, just so proud of you and so happy to see you go into the University of Tennessee Athletics Hall of Fame. Your jersey already been retired, number 5, and now you go into the Athletics Hall of Fame, Chris. It was just such an awesome time in my career to be there when you were playing and to cover you and see what you meant to the university and the program and your teammates. And now to see you go into the Hall of Fame just doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Yeah, man, it's a blessing. Just excited, shocked. I didn't really know much about that Tennessee Hall of Fame, but just how Steve Hamer, how him and Mike told me was great. They surprised me. Tricked me in doing a podcast. Thinking I was doing a podcast for Mike, and then they told me on there. So, I mean, it's been a blur. It's been fun. Just excited and just humble at the same time, knowing that there's so many great players that's played at Tennessee, and I have a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. It's a blessing from God.
Hey, Chris, this is Bob, and first off, really appreciate you hopping on with CeeLo and I. But also, I just want to tell you, as someone who I had this same kind of conversation a few weeks back when Ron Slay joined us, but I'm from originally the state of Indiana. And so about growing up in Kentucky, about Indiana and Kentucky basketball. And I just got to say, down here in the state of Tennessee, I love my football, but I certainly love my basketball. And watching you in years past was just one of the great joys. So this is a real honor to be spending time with you, man.
Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, so my question to you is, let's maybe fast forward a little, talking about what you're doing with the job now. Like you said, you got a front row seat watching this team. And I just would love to get your take on what Coach Barnes has putting together with this team, because this one I'm watching, it's early in the season and watching, a lot of talented guys, but as chemistry is really critical, and we'll have it with these boys, but it takes a little bit of time. What are your thoughts in the early going with this version of the Vols?
Just they've been fun to watch. He's playing so many guys. I think 11 guys played, 12 guys played some games. So he's just like us. He's figuring out the combinations that's going to work. So it's still early. It's going to take some time. So I have all the confidence Coach Barnes is going to put the guys out there that, play the best, play together the best. And, with him plays the best defense, because, that's one thing you got to do for coach. And, So I'm excited to be around, and I've been at practice more, so it's fun. It's fun being around. So I looked at them to have a big year this year, and just see how coach puts it all together.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh no, you're fine. CeeLo, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, first of all, there's only one CeeLo, and it's not me. Okay, so let's get that out there front and center.
I was just doing it to differentiate Chris versus Chris, and so
there's only one.
I hear you, though.
And we're talking to him. Chris, going back to this team, I was talking to Rick right at the start of the season. He's never really had a front line like this deep, this many big guys. And of course, I throw Nate in that group too. He's more of a three, plays face in the basket. But how do you think that plays? Certainly, once you get to the postseason, to have more fouls to give, to have more combos you can play that can go big. You got a guy like Nate, you can play inside and play outside, and sort of working to figure out, like you just said, what combos work and how many times you can have, maybe three guys that are 6'9" or bigger on the floor.
Yeah, that's. I think that's going to be our bread and butter this year. Like you said, because we got 5 big solid bigs that all of them can be interchange and play, and I think at some point somebody's going to be left out though. That's hard to play that many guys, So, practice has got to be a war, and games. So, if one of them bigs, I'm getting the extra work in. I'm making sure that I'm in the rotation because, it could be tough. And then, but then on the other side, if you're not in the rotation, you got to stay ready because you're never going to get caught anytime, and you want to be prepared for that moment. But I agree with you. I absolutely think the bigs is what's going to make us go because, you look at JP, Jalen, Felix, Cade, and Dwayne, the freshman. Those 5 are all solid. I was at practice today, and like all 5 of them are solid players. So it's tough, but I know Coach Barnes is going to figure it out, and you just got to be ready and stay ready for the opportunity.
Chris, let me jump back in there real quick, Bob. When you have that many guys, can you play differently defensively? Because the postseason, I go back to the Purdue game a few years ago when Edie was in the lane for like 10 seconds at a time and fouled everybody out. But can you play differently, even more aggressively, when you've got that many guys and more fouls to give?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, for sure. So that's the good thing about having that deep bench. You got bodies. So if somebody gets in foul trouble, somebody gets hurt, like you're right there. You got somebody right there, next man up. And that's why I always say, like, every person on the team is important because, it's a long season. It's only November, March, April. It's you got to be ready. That's what makes this team that's what makes a team. You got to be ready at all times, no matter what the situation is.
Hey, Chris, this was something that's been on my mind, too. In this early going of this season, we were just talking about the front line, and we were talking about Nate Ament, and so excited that we've got a talent like his on the team just because he is definitely a special one. But given this freshman class that's out there this year, what's crazy is he's just one of many. In many years past, he might have been like the singular focus of a great freshman class. This year, he's just one of a bunch of super talented guys. Do you recall seeing a class come in that's got this many players that are playing at this high a level and are impacting games for big time teams?
I don't. Like you said, there's a lot of them, and that's what makes the difference. You can go down the line. We got Boozer, Peterson, kid from Arizona, kid from Louisville. I watched the other night.
Oh yeah.
So like I'm missing some people too. Like it's down the line. So this is probably the deepest freshman class I've seen that I've been around that I can remember. And I'm just gonna get my popcorn ready and watch because I love watching it. Like
Yeah.
it's just fun for me.
Yeah, it's true. It's yeah. I mean, you mentioned it. I watched that Louisville, Kentucky game the other night, and I had heard about Michael Brown, but man, that's the first time I've seen him play. And by the way, the reason that game was of interest to me, of course, it's got Kentucky involved, and we always play Kentucky a couple of times, but we got Louisville coming up on the schedule here in a couple of weeks. And that's, I think, a great tee up to what we're seeing. I mean, obviously, we're playing some games right now against inferior opponents, which helps Coach Barnes get this team kind of in that rhythm that we've been talking about. But it's about to get very, very real starting next week, right?
Absolutely. That's what I've been telling people. Like, we got these 2 games this week that, should be wins. But after that, you're get ready. It's gonna get real, like you said. The gauntlet's approaching.
Yes.
Speaking of Louisville, Chris, so true or false? Patino to this day swears if you would have committed to him when you were a sophomore, you would have been a Cardinal. Is that true?
Yeah, probably. If I committed as a sophomore, yes.
But I mean, they were the question. I'm sort of joking around with you. He's saying they came early, and I guess you didn't really know what you wanted to do at that point. And then I guess after, how offers come and they go. But he likes to do it. He always tries to defend himself. Well, we offered Chris Lofton. He just wasn't ready to pull the trigger when he was a younger player. So that's why I was just sort of having some fun with you about that.
Oh, yeah. So they did offer me like as a sophomore, but then, they took it away. But then my senior year, they kept coming back watching me play. And, I'm like, are you going to offer me a scholarship or what? Because at that time I would have signed immediately.
Right.
I was a senior and the assistant coach was coming to watch me play. So I was like, I was figuring like, why are y'all coming to watch me play if you're not going to offer me a scholarship, So.
One of the coolest things, I think we talked about it in Indy last year about doing the documentary with you. It's when I called Tubby Smith initially to ask him and told him what we were doing. We're doing the SEC story on you. His first reaction, Chris, was, "Oh boy," because he knew. He said, "All right." I said, "No, we're not looking to beat up. We just want, we want your voice in it." And I think this says a lot about him and you. Is he said, "Absolutely, I'll do that." He was a terrific player, great young man, represented that state. Yeah, I should have signed him. We all would like a mulligan, but he graciously gave us about an hour of his time and sat down and talked about you and your career and how he wished he had a do-over. But that was, getting to talk to people like that after the fact. Kevin Stallings was the same way. I guess, Kevin, you probably played – I guess Stallings and Tubby probably coached as many games against you as anybody.
Yeah. Twice a year for 4 years.
And but just to hear their perspective on you as a player and the way you competed, but especially Tubby, I don't know. I think I told you. I don't know if you knew he was going to be in the documentary, and I think you said something like, "What'd he say?"
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you told me. Tubby was like, I can't even lie. I can't blame him for not recruiting me though. At the time he had the #1 recruiting class.
Right.
He had Rondo, Joe Crawford, Randolph Morris. There's 3 McDonald's All-Americans right there. What are you looking at me for? Wendy's All-American or something. Burger King. So like I can't really blame him for not recruiting me. I understand where he's coming from. But he's been great. And you remember, Chris, they tried to get me to talk bad about Tubby when we beat him that one year, and I'm like, I can't do that.
You were standing on a chair. They had you surrounded. You were standing up on a chair in the corner of the locker room in Rupp Arena. There were Louisville TV stations and Lexington TV stations, and they all just had you swarmed, and they were asking you every question under the sun to try to get you to go after Tubby, and you just would not do it. You would not do it.
I knew, I couldn't do that, man. Tubby's a good people. He's good. He was a great coach, great person. Great person for the state of Kentucky.
Let's talk about another coach that was in that era, and that's your former coach here at Tennessee. And I thought about this today, Chris, because talking about Bruce Pearl, of course, but it's kind of wild for me to watch today. His son Steven was coaching Auburn against Houston, and I don't know if you saw any of that game, but I was thinking, okay, well, Steven's going to get a real indoctrination to college basketball early, going up against Coach Sampson in Houston. But Auburn had a chance to win that game, man. That's it's just kind of wild seeing another generation of a Pearl coaching.
It is, man. It's crazy. It was, congrats to Bruce on retirement, and I'm always hoping for the best for Steven, for sure. He was my teammate for a year, and just like, his dad, did a lot for me when he came to Tennessee. So, always, happy for the situation and that, he got this opportunity. And what's funny, Bruce told me this a few years ago that was his plan to, set it up where Steven got the job and, I wish Steven nothing but the best, of course, and I'm happy for him.
Well, Chris, man, we appreciate you joining us. I tell you, I got to put you on the spot. We've had a million conversations over the years. Where's your favorite spot on the floor to shoot the basketball? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Favorite shoot, wherever I get the ball at, Chris.
That's good.
Good answer.
Wherever I get the ball. I don't. That's a good question. I would say like with Bruce's offense, I always ran the left wing. That was my, the left wing was my. So I guess you could say maybe over on the left, maybe. But like I said, honestly, it didn't matter as long as wherever I got the ball at, it's going up.
Buddy, I gotta say, I was at the game. Certainly the Texas game with your shot over Durant, but also, I'm sure you've heard it a few times now that that shot that Jemai Mashak made to beat Alabama last season felt like it was kind of in the vicinity of where you were, man. It was like it's kind of like a magic spot on the floor.
I mean, I don't know if mine was that deep, but I would say Mashak's is better because his was at the buzzer for the win. So I think that trumps mine a little bit.
He was on the dead sprint too. Jemai was on the dead sprint. Yeah. Chris was crossing over, and just pulled the trigger.
I remember watching. I was just like, he's not. Oh my God! And then it went in. That was amazing.
Yeah, man. I wish Katie would have missed that shot right afterwards. We went to overtime, so my shot it didn't mean anything.
It sort of did. Listen, we do this forever. And Chris has heard me, gigging about this forever. So we vacation, my wife and I vacation every year at Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Well, it just so happens that former Winthrop and Wichita State coach Greg Marshall also has a house down there. And I always see him. And every time he sees me, he makes sure to be sure and tell Chris I said he walked on that play on his game-winning shot.
I love it.
Now he's got a little bit of smile, a little bit, sheepish smile. But he says, when you see him again, tell him I said he walked. It's a great shot. Didn't take away from the shot, but he did walk.
Man, I think I took 2 steps. Man, I'm going to go back and watch the film now. I think it was 2 steps.
I didn't know Coach Marshall could smile, man. That's the biggest takeaway for me on that.
Well, I got a nice little buyout. Let's say he's doing pretty well. But no, he has utmost respect for Chris. And I told him that we still keep it. He'd seen the documentary, but he always asked about you, Chris. Listen, man. Hey, thank you for doing this. It's great. We could do this all day. We'll get to Nashville soon, and we'll let Jordan Howell by you, me. We'll bring Bob along. Maybe we can get Steven there in the off season and go to Stony River. Stony River is Chris's go-to place in Nashville.
Hey, I'm with it, man. I'm with it. And we got to get with Swain too, man.
Swain too, yeah. Jason
he owes us some dead end, don't he? He owes us a dead end.
Yeah, and Daddy, and the only thing with Swain, I love him. He's my brother, but he's got alligator arms, man. When they put the check on the table, Chris, he never wants to pick the check up.
You too, huh? He does that to me too. That's that
guy. Well, man, hey, if you're traveling, travel safe. Tell your mom, 2 of the finest people in the world, Frank and Kathleen, we said hello. And Chris, we'll catch up down the road. We look forward to listening to you this year. Keep up the good work, buddy.
I appreciate y'all. Thanks.
Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
See ya.
That was fun, man. That guy, he's a good dude. And just the whole story, his journey, everything. And, before you and I even became affiliated, I mean, I think I told you when we met for the first time, I had watched the documentary that you were involved with Chris on SEC Network. And I was like, man, what a great dude.
Yeah. And I mentioned his mom and dad, Bob. I mean that sincerely. I'd gotten to know them very well over the years. And I tell people all the time, if you ever want to know why Chris is who Chris is, go sit down for a few minutes with Frank and Kathleen at Lofton, because they are salt of the earth and raised that kid the right way, man. And everything about him is a reflection on them as his parents. And they are just super, super people.
Yeah.
And, Chris is, I'm an alum. I've got my degree, 1 of 3 in my family from university. And people like Chris, not just athletes, but people are the kind of people that make you proud to be an alum there at the University of Tennessee. He's that type of person.
Yeah, amen. Well, before we get into the rest of the show, talking about great people, let's talk for 1 second. Give a shout out to our sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. They're your local insurance team. They're proud to call East Tennessee home as well. Just like our Vols, they know what it takes to overcome obstacles, to give their all, and show true volunteer spirit for our community. And like I said at the beginning of the show, they run the gamut from home and auto to business coverage. You can even talk to them about advice for life insurance, for medical care, all those types of things. They are a personal service that you can count on. That's what they provide. And again, they care what you care about, because this is where they live too. You really want that local angle, and Tate Insurance Group gives it. Local, trusted, always in your corner, and right here at home. Check them out at the Tate Insurance Group. Their website is tateinsuranceGroup.com. You can also call them at 865-862-8233, Tate Insurance Group. Let's
And they're my people too, Bob. I mean, and
yeah.
Scott and his team. I mean, the great thing about when I call, if there's a reason, they know you don't go through 2 or 3 people. They know exactly who you are. They know exactly what you've got with them, and it's just so, as you say, it's so refreshing to deal with people like that in the insurance world. They've got all my family's insurance, so I believe in. Known Scott a long time, believe in them, and it's been just an unbelievable relationship over the years with them.
Yeah. No, they're definitely worth checking out, and we appreciate them being a part of this show for sure. Let's talk a little football. We're going to move off of basketball, talk a little bit of football, because Tennessee Vols, like I said at the outset of the show, they're back in action. They had a decisive, if kind of unimpressive, win over New Mexico State. And like I said earlier too, it's kind of it was the first game back. We had a little bit of a breather from Tennessee football, if you will, after that Oklahoma loss. And I think that was probably good, because there were a lot of fans that were frustrated, but it was good to have the boys back. And the goals were pretty clear in this game, in my opinion, Chris, and that was win decisively, put it away early, and most importantly, get a chance to give some of the younger players some real playing time. I would say in that case, mission was kind of accomplished. The game was never in doubt, but still felt like, at least in the first half and parts of the game, felt like the boys were going through the motions a little.
Well, it's a hard game to play. As you said, it's, you had the week off, and you had this game when everyone knows that, really the main accomplishment in a game like this, Bob, is not to get anybody hurt.
Right.
You're not going to lose. There's no way. I guess there's a way, but not really. And what's coming on the back end. You got Florida and Vandy, 2 of your bigger games of the season. So it's a hard, and I'm not making excuses, because it wasn't the sharpest or most polished effort by Tennessee, but these are hard games to get ready to play. And again, I think I will be interested to see how teams start setting up their schedules, not just Tennessee, but the SEC, when we go to 9 league games starting next year. Do you try to get, because remember, you still got to play, a Georgia, like Tennessee plays Georgia Tech next year. You still got to play one of those games.
Yeah.
So that's 10 games. It gives you 2. Are you going to play one of those in September? Are you going to play both of them in September? Are you going to try to play one in September, one in November? We'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, most definitely. This one, the one takeaway I had in the first half, Tennessee jumps out to a 21-0 lead. I felt like we saw a little more, and it's been kind of a constant reminder here late in the season. And I don't want to dismiss the kind of season by and large that Joey Aguilar's had, but I feel like we've seen a little more of the Joey Aguilar we were concerned about going into the season with him. He threw 2 interceptions in the first half. One was pretty inexplicable, and that's tough to watch. But again, I don't want to make it sound like Joey still had a good game. He I think continued his streak. I want to say it's 33 straight games now with over 200 yards passing. So had a TD, had those 2 picks, but 34 yards rushing and a TD that route as well. So, Joey, again, he's the straw that stirs the Tennessee offensive drink, so to speak. And I don't know what we would have done without him this season, but we've seen a few maybe a few leaks here towards the end of the season too.
Well, he's been so productive, and I think that
Right.
even over and above the turnovers, which was the knock on him coming out of Appalachian State, was that he turned the football over, threw too many interceptions, but he's given them the thing Joey's done in every game is he's given them a chance. He played. Listen, he and the offense played well enough against Georgia to win that football game. They didn't, but then to your point, they've had critical turnovers. He's had critical turnovers in the loss to Alabama, the loss to Oklahoma. If they're playing Vanderbilt or Florida in that game last night, then who knows with those types of interceptions, how that game turns. And that's the truth of it. I think to have him, though, and you said it, to get him in almost like he was dropped in your lap in April.
Yeah.
I don't know what this season would have amounted to without him. I mean, McIntyre I think is going to be a good player, but he just wasn't ready. It would have been unfair to him to throw him out there as a quarterback. I don't know that Merklinger will be with the program next year. I'd say he'll probably look to get out and go somewhere else. But to have a guy that had played as much football as Joey had just dropped in your lap, and to be as productive as he has, there's been some turnovers against and some tough losses, but I don't know that they would have beaten Mississippi State on the road without it. There's just a lot of things like that. And I think the final chapters in his book haven't been written. We'll see how he plays and how Tennessee plays. He goes to Florida. He's got a chance to do something that Tennessee hasn't done or no Tennessee quarterback has done since 2003, and that's lead Tennessee to a win at the Swamp.
Right.
I'd say if he does that, then certainly that's something when we look back on his year at Tennessee, that's something that people are always going to talk about. And then Vandy, the best Vandy team Tennessee's ever played, comes in here potentially with a playoff bid on the line. And so I still think there's when we start talking about his value and his impact on this team, and I love the way he's just been so selfless. He's still got 2 chances to sort of write those 2 chapters, in his year-long book here. But I think most Tennessee fans would tell you that watching him play, the way he goes about his business, the way he's rallied the guys on the team around him, the way they've rallied around him, he really was, in a lot of ways, a godsend to this team to get him as late as they did.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and we just have to remember that it's simple in that often he came out of the gates guns blazing, and like you said, that Georgia game in particular, it all of a sudden elevates the level of expectation that we have for the team and what we had for Joey, and you're right. I mean, with all due respect to Jake Merklinger, there's a real good chance that we could be talking about a team that's more faced with a season of like 7-5 or 6-6 if we didn't have Joey. Now, could it still end up 7-5? I don't think it will, but I agree with everything you said, Chris. It's like his contribution to this team. It was definitely serendipitous that we were able to cross paths with him. He came in just at the very perfect time. Talking about the rest of the game, we don't need to go into too much detail on this game because, again, it was kind of like a high-end scrimmage. The Vols were not sharp, and in a game like that, you can still win comfortably by not being totally sharp. But, we're going to be watching closely as we head into these final 2 games. I felt like the running game was strong again. It surely wasn't against Oklahoma. I think a lot of that was attributable to Oklahoma's defense. I think Alabama can attest to that now too. But the running game was productive to the extent of almost 200 yards rushing. Deshaun Bishop had 80 yards rushing in a TD. Peyton Lewis, 42 yards rushing in a TD. Star Thomas, 30 yards in a TD. Like I said earlier, Joey runs the ball for a touchdown. So That's one of the things I wanted to see going into this game was I don't think you had to have big offensive fireworks if you just kind of used where you had the advantage physically and just take advantage that way. You're going to win the game, and they certainly looked better in the run game than I've seen in their last time out.
Well, you would expect them to against New Mexico State. It would have been a huge disappointment if they don't run the football productively. And I think that's ever since Josh has been here. I mean, you go back to his UCF days when that's him and his offense is at their best when they're running the ball, and it can get you downhill on your heels, and then you're able to spread you out, hit some big plays in the pass game. So I don't think there's any question that as Tennessee goes forward, they're going to have to be able to run the football and not put all the pressure on Joey to throw for 300 or 350 yards. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when he's having to throw the football 40-plus times a game, that's not ideal. And, you want to be able to throw it when you want to throw it. And I think that's the beauty of when they've been really good on offense, that's what they've been able to do. So, yeah, the running game will be important, and it has been important. And I think it's probably right on down the line. Every year Josh has coached at Tennessee, Bob, you could go back and certainly against the best team. Now, New Mexico State would not qualify, but against the best teams, when they have run the football for 150-plus yards, their record's really, really good.
Yeah. Just for a minute, one other observation I had from this game on Saturday was because I think we're getting enough of a sample size now, and this is about the wide receivers. Chris Brazzell, obviously having a fantastic year. But in this game against New Mexico State, Braylon Staley, 5 catches, 58 yards, and a TD. It feels to me like maybe there's a little bit, it's great to have them both, but a little bit of a changing of the guard. And it feels like Braylon is getting just as much attention now in terms of Joey in the passing game than Brazzell has. And that's probably from the perspective of the defense, maybe putting more emphasis on Chris Brazzell too. But man, all of a sudden it feels like maybe we have wide receiver 1 and 1A.
Yeah, I know. I was looking this up, Bob, while you were saying that. I think Matthews is 33 yards away from 700 receiving yards. The other two have 700. Yeah, I think this is right. I think if that happened, he should be able to get 33 yards in his last 2 games. I think that will be the only time in Tennessee history, the first time that they've had 3 receivers in the same season go over 700 yards in receiving, which is, when you think of all the receivers Tennessee's had down through the years, and not only receivers, but I go back to Alvin Harper and Carl Pickens on the same team, and some of those guys who were there, Peerless Price and Marcus Nash, when Peyton was there. I mean, you go all the way back to Anthony Hancock and Willie Gault. I'm really showing my age now, but there's been a lot of really good receiving combos and cores, and to say this would be the first time. And again, someone will certainly correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think this will be the first time you've had 3 on the same Tennessee team who've gone over 700 yards. So yeah, it's those guys have really stepped up this year, because that was one of the questions coming into the year was, who was going to be their big play guys? Who was going to catch the football? Would Matthews improve? What was Staley? Would Brazzell in this is his second year in the program now after transferring? Would he really sort of come on? Well, the questions, those questions are yes, yes, and yes. And it's been a lot of fun to watch. And you'd like to see them play their best games and save their best for these last few games. And I agree, man. It's when you've got one guy, who is just absolutely torching teams, i.e. Brazzell, then people are going to start saying, you know what? We're going to take him away. We're going to take this guy away. And because of that, you're opening up things for the other guys. And that's what's happened. They played off of each other. They've complemented each other very well. And it's been hard to say, all right, you can't stop 3 guys like that who are explosive, who are good after the catch, who separate. They all do those things pretty well. And I think you've seen that play out this year.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Jumping over to the defense for a second, I would say this performance was kind of a bend but don't break performance. Certainly the lowest output in terms of points scored against the Vols this season happened, so only 9 points. But still 340 yards allowed to the Aggies, 317 by air. But the other thing Tennessee has been good at doing this season, and they did it again against New Mexico State, was they got in the end zone on the defensive side of the ball, compliments of William Wright.
Yeah, that's sort of been their, listen, I know there's been a lot of gnashing of the teeth about this defense, and they've not played well at times. But when they've needed to make plays on defense, i.e. Mississippi State, they've been able to score on defense. There's a stat, and I think I wrote it, that coming into this game, they had given up 16 points. Tennessee had. The defense hadn't even stepped on the field. So sometimes when you're looking at points scored, that's the worst metric you can look at, because Tennessee's given up some touchdowns this year, some crippling game-turning touchdowns, Bob, that the defense didn't have anything to do with.
Yeah.
Nada. And I think it's important to remember that. But this last stretch again, Lagway looked a lot better in this last game against Ole Miss. They shut it down against Kentucky a few weeks ago. It looked like they just didn't want to be there, but they did compete, and he was better last night against Ole Miss. And then, of course, you got Pavia, who is a nightmare to defend because he's a lot like Manziel. When you think you've got him defended, or you think you've got his tendencies down and you play it correctly, then he does something, just what I call off-script breakdown backyard football. And those quarterbacks are really, really difficult to defend. And he's good in that even when he's running all over the place, he keeps his eyes down the field. He can throw the football. So Tennessee's defense these next 2 weeks against two quarterbacks who can move around and make plays, they'll have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think that's what's interesting here. I was kind of surprised to see this, but I think it's more of a commentary on the matchups in the SEC next week. But Tennessee, they set the game time for the game against Florida. Prime time, 7:30, national TV on ABC as well. So like you just said, this is one now that, it's funny. I've talked to some of my friends who are like, oh boy, we got to play in Gainesville at night. It doesn't make me feel good. Just because everybody knows the history, right, of this series all too well.
Does anything Gainesville/Tennessee make any Tennessee fan feel good?
No, I guess
when you hear
not.
Gainesville, Tennessee, 22 years ago. That's a long time. What were you doing 22 years ago, Bob?
Oh God, I can't remember. I can't remember what I did 22 hours ago at this point.
I think I get it. It's almost like it's for Tennessee fans, it's like being hit in the head over and over and over again. And at some point, you just feel like you're doozy all the time. And I think that's what this series has been like for Tennessee, especially down there, which is why, to your point, I think we're at a point now in Josh Heupel's career, his tenure, and not just Josh, but this program, where to really keep this fan base centered, 1,000% on board, this is a game you got to win.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And is that fair? No, I'm not saying it's fair or unfair. It's just a fact. If you go there and lose to a Florida team with an interim coach, a Florida team that 1 week mails it in, the next week plays okay, a Florida team that, just doesn't have really much of anything to play for. Now, you can also say they're going to go in and play with house money. They got nothing to lose. It's a night game. When I saw the night start, Bob, I'll be honest, I thought, boy, that's good for the Gators, not so good for the Vols. But I still think this is when you got to win, because if you don't, then questions start to creep in. How can you lose that game? How do you go there and lose again to a team that just sort of limping along with a coach that's not going to be there next year? And then the other thing it does, Bob, if you lose this game, it sets up Armageddon that last week of the season.
Yeah.
Because then you're going into that Vandy game against the most talented Vandy team Tennessee's ever played, certainly in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And a Vandy team playing for everything, and God knows what happens if you lose back-to-back around here. It makes for a really long offseason, which is why I say, listen, it never comes down to 1 or 2 games. I think you got to look at the body of work and what Josh has done here and the way he's changed the culture. He's raised expectations from what we've seen in Tennessee football over the last 2+ decades, really 3 decades. If you go back to the end of Fulmer's career. But I think it starts to become a little bit of a slippery slope now if you don't win these last 2 games. And certainly, gasp, if you were to lose both of them.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's to me, that's the part that's so tough here. And this, let's not understate the fact this is part of the nature of the new era of college football too, because this is another challenge for Josh Heupel. It's another challenge for the fan base, and that is I think we thought, man, it's going to make the picture a lot clearer and better for everyone when we expand the college football playoff field from 4 teams to 12. Well, we've done that. Last year, we make it in the inaugural run of the 12-team field. This year, we're not going to make it. And it makes the last 3 to 4 weeks of the season feel a little like unfulfilled. And no matter what happens, and that's the part that's really hard is like, how's that work for the players too? And so that makes Josh's job even that much harder. And that's why I said earlier at the beginning of the show, these last 2 games, even though, the difference between finishing the regular season 9-3, maybe go to a nice bowl game and win and finish 10-3, or if they lose, heaven forbid, the last 2 games, finish the regular season 7-5, and then go to some sort of truly kind of meaningless bowl game, man, that's an enormous difference. That delta is like almost indescribable in my opinion. So that's why these games matter so much. Even though we're not playing for a playoff spot, they are certainly consequential to recruiting, to generating fan interest, which correlates to revenue generation, all of those things. These games are incredibly important. And, Josh, I don't think we have to tell Josh that. He knows.
And he enabled the fans at Tennessee to taste it again a little bit over the last few years.
Right.
In 22, they won 11 games. They go to the Orange Bowl. They beat Clemson. Last year, they go to the playoff for the first time ever in Tennessee football history. He has ended long losing streaks to Alabama and Florida while he's been here. So he's done the things that you hoped when you brought a coach in that he would do. And I think to a degree, he's a little bit of a victim of his success. Now it's like, well, wait a minute. We got to the playoff last year, and I love the revisionist history. We got there, but we got drilled by Ohio State. I've heard some people say, well, we backed in. That's nonsense. To me,
Agreed.
What's the old Parcells line? You are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
Tennessee would have given, anything to get to the playoff before last year. They got there. Now they're not going to get there this year, which, going back to what you just said, which makes these last few games, it sort of shows, I think, a lot about this program, what it's made of when there's not a playoff bid on the line against 2 teams that your fan base, A, wants to beat, and B, doesn't want to lose to.
Right.
So there's a lot out there for this program. And that's why I say I think we're at a little bit of I won't say a crossroads, but I think we're at a little bit of a point in Josh's tenure here where if they were to lose one or certainly both, then more probably than since we've seen that first year, doubts start to creep in. And part of that is because they have had success and done some things that Tennessee has done. The thing that no Tennessee fan wants to hear, listen, again, 3 generations of low men in my family have their degrees here. My son works for the athletic department. Tennessee football over the last 30 years has averaged about 8 wins a year. There was an unbelievable stretch there from 95 to 98. Bob, and I hope we both live to be 98 or 108. I don't know that we'll ever see a stretch like that in our lives again.
Right.
They were 45-5, 2 SEC titles, back-to-back SEC titles, and a national title. Only Alabama, which shows you how tough the SEC is, has won back-to-back SEC titles since then. They did it twice. Georgia didn't do it.
Yeah.
When Kirby was there. So that was a magical stretch. And if that's indeed the standard for whoever coaches at Tennessee, that's a hell of a standard, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know how realistic that standard is. So I'll say, and I wrote a column about it last week, to me, where does Josh go from here? How much does he grow as a head football coach okay, managing the program, all the things that it takes now, living in the NIL world, evals, coaching staff, tweaking your coaching staff. To me, those are the things to watch. I think Josh has done everything and then some, what they asked him to do when he got here. Now, as he goes from year 5 to year 6, how much better does he get? How much does this program grow?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we put it in that framework. It's like, man, we need these games, right? That's just to kind of set the table for future success. It's not all about playing in this moment. It's about what the road ahead looks like. And by the way, you know, as we draw closer to the college football playoffs and we talk about, you know, where our team is versus some of the others, again, not necessarily not a playoff season, but the Vols are ranked 20th on the latest releases in the AP and coaches poll. They've moved up a spot in each of them. And there's other programs, you know, off the heels of this weekend that it's going to be, it could be worse, you know, and I think of one right off the bat. Texas A&M is still undefeated, but boy, did they flirt with disaster against South Carolina this weekend, Chris. They fell behind 30-7 at half, got it together, had a big comeback, win the game 31-30, but this is a South Carolina team that is now 3-7. And at the beginning of the season, they were a preseason borderline top 10 team. And now we could be having a conversation of maybe that loss might have been a death blow to Shane Beamer and his coaching tenure in Columbia.
Yeah, they were probably, and I thought at the first of the season, the most overrated team. Of course, you could say that about a lot of teams. Look at Clemson.
Yeah.
Look at Penn State. A lot of teams that were, which tells you all you need to know really about preseason polls.
Right.
I don't think Beamer's going to get fired this year, but that's the kind of loss that is hard to recover from long term. And it just you can't. As I did radio last night, I'm not sure if that was a more improbable comeback, more improbable meltdown.
Yeah,
that second half, and you know, you look around the league, and you know, Alabama, they had it rolling. Now they lose at home to Oklahoma, which may well be playing its way into the playoff.
Yeah.
They've got Auburn on the Plains in 2 weeks, and it's taken miracles each of the last 2 times Alabama has gone to Auburn to play for Alabama to win. Well, this Auburn team, granted they had a coaching change, is more talented, certainly better on defense than any of those last 2 Auburn teams were. So Bama goes from being 4th and solidly in the playoff to losing at home to Oklahoma, now going to Auburn in 2 weeks to play its bitter rival. They lose that game. Guess what, Bob? They're going to be watching the playoff from home.
Yeah.
I mean, it changes in a hurry, in the SEC. And that's why, you know, you look around at the league and just how just thin the margin is between being an 8-9 win team and being a 10 or 11 win team.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to Georgia. Listen, Tennessee thoroughly outplayed Georgia.
Yeah.
But Georgia is Georgia. And for all Kirby Smart, what you want to say about him as a coach, talent evaluator, recruiter, his teams know how to win. They just know how to win. They've got that computer chip, I guess, that they insert in those kids when they get there on campus. And sometimes that takes time at a program. I'm not talking about just Tennessee, but it's a league this year more than ever that it's just hard to get a handle on. I don't know as we look ahead these next few weeks. I mean, and look what's going on there at Ole Miss. I mean, Lane Kiffin can't make up his mind. Does he want to stay at Ole Miss?
Right.
Does he want to go to Florida? And I think he's going to be given a deadline, Bob.
Yeah.
I think this week that he's going to have to tell Ole Miss, yeah, I'm your coach. I'm going to re-sign her. Guess what? They're moving on, and he won't be coaching the playoff. Somebody else will.
Yeah.
It's been that type of year, and then you know, we mentioned Vandy, and then Vandy's in the playoff conversation. Who saw that coming? So I will be very interested to see how Tennessee plays in Gainesville. They have tended to find ways to lose games there. You know, maybe it's time they figure out a way and find a way how to win. It should be a motivated. To me, the worst thing would be to see Tennessee go down there and just look apathetic and just unmotivated. because they have a lot to play for still. There's a lot of pride in the Tennessee program, and certainly everything you've built and worked toward over the last few years. You don't want to flush down the toilet by going to Florida, a place where it's just been a horror chamber for you, and not play and not compete and have a chance to win that football game. But I've seen that movie, brother. I came to the Tennessee in '97 in my first year in Nashville covering the program. And I've seen that movie a ton of times, Bob. Tennessee got down there with pretty good football teams. Some years they were clearly better than Florida. Some years Florida was better. Some years they were very comparable.
Right.
And twice Tennessee won in, let's see, they won in 01 and they won in 03.
Yeah.
And a lot of L's over and above those two. So maybe this is the year that it changes. But I do think this is a key game for Josh, a key game for the program to prove that, you know what, you're still sort of doing, even though you're not going to be in the playoff, you're still sort of doing this and not starting to sort of even out a little bit.
Yeah. Couple points to kind of bring it home here. We talked a little bit about what Alabama has kind of put themselves in a tough spot off the heels of that loss on Saturday to Oklahoma. In watching that game, or parts of it, the Sooners, boy, they sure feel a lot like the 2024 Vols to me. And what I mean by that is not that much offensively, but very, very opportunistic and just downright stifling defensively. And that's their identity. It's proven. We showed it last season, and they're showing it again this season. That can still play in college football. Everybody thinks it's all about offense, and how they'll do in the playoffs if they make it that far, time will tell. But that Oklahoma team, all of a sudden, man, they're a super hard out. And we thought maybe it was just we played so badly 2 weeks ago. We didn't play well, but I think Oklahoma now is kind of showing a pattern of, well, we kind of we contribute to that not playing well part.
That's a good analogy. It is a team that's reminds me a little bit of Tennessee last year, because the defense is the backbone of that team. And that's Brent Venables is always going to have a team that plays. I mean, last year when Tennessee went to Oklahoma, the OU defense kept them in that game. I mean, they couldn't make a first down against Tennessee. And they've gotten a little bit better on offense. I still don't think that the quarterback, Mateer, is full go after hurting his thumb, but they've been so good and made so many disruptive plays on defense, Bob, and they are where they are. You're right. Still complimentary football still plays. And I think they are playing at a level right now defensively that they believe that they're going to be able to, if not shut down, they're going to be able to take every game, into the fourth quarter. So I'm going to, Thanksgiving, now this is not obviously Thanksgiving weekend coming up, but in 2 weeks, I don't know that we have ever seen a more compelling, potentially dramatic Thanksgiving weekend in the SEC than we're going to see in 2 weeks. I can think of 4 or 5 games that will have a direct impact on the playoff, SEC championship race, the teams that get into the SEC championship. Mm-hmm. Certainly Vandy, Tennessee should be one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other point I was going to make is because we've gone back and forth on this, and at certain points we're like, there's no way we're going to get 5 SEC teams into the playoffs. I think this could be the year. We've got 5 SEC teams in the top 10 right now, and they're all deserving. And if they can take care of their business, which is not an easy feat in this conference, like you just said. I mean, next weekend for Oklahoma, for example, I think if Oklahoma wins out, they've got a really good shot of making the field of 12. But they got Missouri coming into Norman next week, and you just never know with Missouri. They might have another 300-yard rushing game from Ahmad Harvey. So, I think that you're right, man. Maybe not so much next weekend, but the following weekend, there is a lot at stake.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. That's the part of the 12-team playoff that I think makes it so much fun. You go into that last weekend with a ton of teams, as opposed to the 4-team format that still have a chance.
Yep.
A bunch of fan bases, Bob, that are still really engaged. I mean, take Georgia Tech. Now that's not an SEC game.
Yeah.
But that game's played on Friday there at Mercedes-Benz. That's got a chance to be a massive game for both schools.
Absolutely.
Mississippi. What if Lane decides he's going to Florida?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Ole Miss plays at Mississippi State in Starkville on that Friday.
Yep.
That ain't going to be easy. Think of all the things that are going to be swirling around that game if he doesn't, or even if he stays, even if he comes out and says, "Hey, I'm re-upping with Ole Miss." There's just so many storylines that I think we're going to see play out over these next 2 weeks, and we'll see if Tennessee can hold serve. And a couple notes, Bob, on Tennessee. Boo Carter, whose story has sort of been well chronicled out there this year, no longer part of the program.
Yep.
I was surprised that he was allowed to come back and be with the team when the season opened.
Yeah.
He went AWOL in the offseason, missed some voluntary workouts. A lot of the kids on the team didn't want him back. He's a super talent, but I just don't know that he was ever fully committed. Josh Heupel let him back, so there was things he had to do. Played some early, not a lot. Played a little bit more as the season went on. The last 2 weeks ago, I don't think he played a defensive snap, and then was not with the team. Now, I think there was some type of injury that he said had plagued him, but the two sides met. He met with the coaches. He's gone, won't be back. Will be somewhere else next year. On the injury front, some good and bad. I think Miles Kitson with the tight end has a pretty bad injury. I don't know what his status is going to be the rest of the year. Wendell Moe, the guard, also hurt. We'll see, how quickly he bounces back. I think there's a chance, really for the first time, that we might see Jamal McCoy play against Florida. I'm not saying he's probable.
Yeah.
I never had any feel or any information until this game that made me believe he was going to play. There may be a chance that he can get out there and play against the Gators, which if he's healthy, and they're not going to put him out there unless he's been cleared 100%. The kid has a pro future. But if he's healthy, then that could really be a big boost for that Tennessee secondary. So we'll see what he can do in practice. We'll see. There's all sorts of things, how the knee responds, is there swelling, those type of things. But I think there at least is a pathway for him to potentially play this week. We'll see if that happens.
A lot in play and a lot to monitor, and we'll be doing it. I'm looking forward to it. But we're going to wrap up for today. Chris, as always, thank you, man. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for watching and listening. We'll be back next week with another edition of the RTI Lowdown. We'll recap what is hopefully a productive trip to the Swamp, look ahead to that regular season finale with Vanderbilt, and then also preview the basketball Vols getting ready to head into a star-studded tournament in Vegas for Feast Week. That field is loaded, so we'll be talking about that. As always, many thanks to our sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show on YouTube and download our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, we're on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel, and you can find us on Rocky Top Insider podcast for whatever platform you choose. Appreciate you being a part of the show. Chris, always enjoy spending time with you, my friend, and talking
right back at you.
Yeah,
right back
man.
at you, Bob.
Let's do it again next week. In the meantime, I hope you have a good week ahead, and you, the listeners and viewers, same to you. Hope you have a great week as well. We will talk to you soon, and thanks for watching the RTI Lowdown.